somebody will serve this country, the military, army, navy, air force. He will serve this country for 30 years, 35 years of service. And after retiring is when he will have money to go and build a house in the village or drive his first car, because he couldn't afford to buy it all this time or build a house. Then somebody that they rig the election, the person now is a house member, we get 160 million just for car, bulletproof. Meanwhile, these people that have been sacrificing their life in the bush, living in the bush, can't even afford their house after retirement. In this our country, life no balance.
While everything he said is true, the problem is the army shouldn't be complaining to civilians. They are the ones who are supposed to handle the issues. Immediately they know that the pillars that support the country's unity, that supports democracy, are being broken by politicians. They are supposed to reset the country back like their mates in African countries do. Look at what happened in Gabon. They didn't wait for stories. They didn't start complaining to civilians what the politicians have done. They just did what was necessary. They revolted. It happened many places, in Niger, in Burkina, in other African countries. Many people in Nigeria and African countries are wondering why the Nigerian military hasn't revolted against the politicians. That their silence and inaction might mean that they are complicit. Which now brings us to the second thing he raised. He mentioned rigged elections. That politicians who rigged elections to be in the Federal House of Assembly have been given cars worth 160 million naira each. Mind you, there are some military men who will never earn this amount of money after 35 years of service in the military. That's including their gratuity. So why did the military help politicians in rigging the election? Yes, not just the military, even the police. They all actively worked together, took money from politicians and intimidated the voters. Some were caught snatching ballot papers. Can you imagine the level they descended just because of a few naira? You see, this is the problem. Not that every one of them actively helped the politicians to rig elections, but many of them did, even at their HQ in Abuja. Just the few thousands of naira they were given, they didn't know that the politicians were doing business. To them, it's like a business. You invest money, you earn your return on investment. That's what they did. They pay people to rig elections for them, pay INEC officials, pay everybody payable, even judges. When they get there, they start stealing the money. They start awarding dubious contracts worth billions of naira for no just reason. They are trying to recover their investment. That's exactly what they're doing. This also applies to the citizens, not just the policemen or the military. When politicians flash a few thousands, just 2,000, in some cases 1,000 naira, hey, come out, mobilize people for me, let's campaign. And on election day, they will share a few thousands again, please mobilize votes for me. After that, that's the end. They will start recovering all the money they spent.
Nobody, even around two, the DBO came with his men and nothing happened. What is this?
If people stop taking money from politicians to do their dirty deeds for them, they will become powerless even with the billions. Yes, if they can't bribe anyone, they can't have their way. As simple as that. They can't be at multiple polling stations on election day. It's not possible. But people will prefer to collect money from politicians because they see it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. They will say, these politicians, when they get there, they will forget me. Let me collect my own now. Let me take that money now. The money wouldn't even last a few days before they start regretting. Why did they work for such a politician that is obviously incompetent? So imagine if all of us work together to make our country better. The country will definitely be better. The most competent and popular candidate must emerge in all elections. Take for instance the 1993 presidential election. The then Electoral Commission never used any form of technology to conduct that election, but it was still free and fair. What happened? It was simply because the majority, a greater majority of Nigerians did the right thing. Very few people were involved in rigging or snatching of ballot boxes and destruction of ballot papers. Compare that to 2023 presidential elections. 30 years later, with all the technology available and improvements, they were still able to do worse than in 1993. So the problem is not technology, the problem is human. And who are these humans? The APC leaders. They form the majority of the powers that be. They knew before going into the presidential election that they will never win a free and fair election. It's natural. It was simply because of how they handled the economy the past 8 years. To them, the presidential election was a do-or-die affair. For many reasons, they wanted to repay Tinubu because of his financial support to APC in the early days, in 2014, 2019, and other times. They wanted to repay his geopolitical zone because of their support to Buhari. To them, this must happen, whether Nigerians wanted it or not, whether Nigerians were part of the agreement or to repay the favor or anything, it must happen, whether at the polls or in courts. It was decided before Nigerians went into the election. In such a situation, the opposition stood no chance. And even some people who genuinely felt they were working for the best candidate, that the candidate is competent, he will do the right thing, many of them are regretting today. Yes, they can no longer endure it. They are coming out and saying, hey, this wasn't what we expected, we thought this, we thought that, but it is already late. All the signs were there in the beginning, but people still fell for it because of a few pennies. Now they are complaining whether it is genuine or not, but the deed has been done. So it is time for every one of us to try and be doing the right thing. It is time for us to start seeing the overall interest, the collective interest, not our selfish interest. The military boys and other security agents are supposed to be more patriotic than ordinary civilians because they are in the system. They are working for the government. They are supposed to understand the system very well. So they are supposed to be more patriotic. But is that the situation? Absolutely no. They always transfer their anger and frustrations to ordinary citizens who unfortunately are also suffering the same anger and frustrations because of a non-working system. The country is not working for everyone, so everyone is frustrated. But these military boys and the police always see the civilians as target, as people they will intimidate, obtain money from, do all sorts of things. In fact, they always prey on them. Instead of them to transfer that frustration to the normal quarters, the people that are actually causing the suffering in the first place, they transfer them to ordinary citizens. This is where the problem lies. The very day they understand where the problem is coming, they know anyway. It's not as if they don't know. They know, it's just that they feel that they can easily get away with intimidating ordinary citizens who are powerless. These are signs of a failed system. The country isn't working for everyone. It's only working for politicians. Military men, police, all security agents are supposed to have access to a home mortgage. They're supposed to be able to buy their own home on mortgage just after 3 months of recruitment. Yes, that's how it works in many other countries. They're not supposed to be worrying about their retirement because all these leads to corruption. If they don't have their own home, how are they going to pay rent after retirement? That means they will have to move to the village. This also happens in the civil service. So it's a huge problem. The salary is worth next to nothing. When someone spends most of his salary on living expenses, there will not be any savings that the person can rely on after retirement. So these are the kind of progressive policies that people should have in mind during presidential election campaigns so as to see the right candidate that will implement them when he is voted into office, not politicians who only care about political patronage. Like we have right now, they are busy paying each other off. The amount of money you receive as budget will be equivalent to how much you contributed during the campaigns or whatever thing the person did for the party. That's exactly what is going on. They are busy budgeting billions of naira, 15 billion naira for renovation of a house, 15 billion naira for this one, 10 billion for this, 10 billion for buying software alone for the chief of staff. So it's very outrageous. While soldiers, people that are exposed to more danger, are suffering. But it seems the suffering is still not enough. When it hits home, Nigerians will be ready. Thanks for watching.